Imagine for a moment you're lost in the vastest, most unforgiving desert imaginable. Not just a desert of sand, but a desert of the soul, where each step could be your last, where every decision carries the weight of 1,000 destinies, and where the only compass you possess is the whispering voice of your own conscience. Now imagine that, in this moment of utter despair, when all seems lost and meaningless, a figure appears before you who intimately knows both the darkness and the light of this endless wasteland. Someone who has walked paths you can't even conceive of, who has seen futures yet unborn, and who carries on their shoulders the burden of choices that can save or destroy entire worlds. This figure extends a hand to you and whispers, "I know the way." Would you take that hand? Because today, in this moment, Paul Atreides, the young man who became a messiah, the visionary who saw beyond the veil of time, the leader who transformed fear into power and destiny into choice, is extending that hand to you through the timeless pages of Dune. And the words he has to share aren't just about survival in the desert, but about finding meaning, purpose, and true strength when life seems to have lost all sense. Welcome to a journey that goes beyond entertainment. You are about to delve into the depths of the wisdom of one of the most complex and inspiring characters ever created in literature. Paul Atreides isn't just a science fiction hero, he's a mirror to the human condition, a guide for those seeking to understand their place in the universe and discover the courage to embrace their true destiny. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore together 35 profound truths that Paul uncovered on his extraordinary journey, from the young Duke of Caladan to the Emperor of 1,000 worlds. Each of these lessons was forged in the fires of adversity, tempered by ancestral wisdom, and refined by the vision of someone who saw both the best and worst of humanity. You will learn how to transform your greatest weaknesses into indomitable strengths, how to find clarity amidst chaos, how to lead with compassion even when surrounded by enemies, and how to discover your purpose even when everything seems to conspire against you. This isn't just an analysis of a character, it's a life manual disguised as entertainment, a treasure trove of practical wisdom you can apply immediately to your own journey. Prepare to see your life through new eyes and discover truths that could forever change the way you view challenges, opportunities, and your own limitless potential. First, truth. Fear is the killer of the mind, but also its most powerful teacher. Paul understood early on that fear isn't something to be eliminated, but transformed. When you confront your deepest fears, don't run from them, dive into them with curiosity. The fear of failure can become the motivation for excellence. The fear of rejection can transform into the courage to be authentic. The fear of death can awaken in you the urgency to live fully. Paul learned that those who master their fears don't eliminate them, but transform them into allies. In your daily life, when you feel the chill of fear running down your spine, pause and ask, what is this fear trying to teach me? Often you'll discover that behind the fear lies precious wisdom waiting to be uncovered. Second truth. True power doesn't come from controlling others, but from knowing yourself deeply. Paul possessed superhuman abilities, but his greatest strength wasn't his prescience or his physical abilities. It was his capacity to look inward and understand his own motivations, limitations, and potentials. You may not have visions of the future, but you have something even more powerful: the ability to become aware of your patterns, your emotional triggers, your limiting beliefs, and your unique talents. Dedicate time daily to self-observation. Question your automatic reactions. When you get angry, ask what's really behind that anger. When you feel joy, understand what genuinely brings satisfaction to your soul. This self-knowledge will be your greatest source of personal power. Third truth. In the oldest traditions lie the keys to the most modern challenges. Paul found wisdom not only in the advanced technology of his time, but in the ancestral practices of the Bene Gesserit, in the teachings of the freemen, and in the lessons of his ancestors. In a world obsessed with novelty, you can find profound answers by looking backward. Meditation, an ancient practice, can solve your modern anxiety problems. Ancient Stoic principles can help you navigate contemporary stress. Traditions of gratitude can heal the existential void of a materialistic age. don't dismiss the wisdom that has crossed centuries to reach you. Often the simplest and oldest solutions are the most effective for the most complex and current problems. Fourth truth. True leadership is born from service, not domination. Paul could have used his power to subjugate, but he chose to lead by serving a purpose greater than himself. Whether you're a team leader, a parent, or simply someone seeking positive influence in your circle, remember that people don't follow titles. They follow genuine hearts. Ask yourself daily, how can I best serve? Instead of seeking recognition, seek opportunities to add value to the lives of others. True leadership isn't about having followers, but about creating other leaders. When you lead by example and with your heart focused on the common good, natural authority emerges without forcing anything. Fifth truth. The desert teaches that external scarcity can reveal internal abundance. On Arrakis, where water was more precious than gold, Paul learned that external limitations often reveal internal resources we didn't even know we possessed. When facing limitations, financial, emotional, or social, instead of dwelling on scarcity, look for hidden abundance. Lack of money can reveal your creativity. Isolation can awaken your inner strength. Hardships can unveil reserves of courage you never knew you possessed. The Freemen transformed a hostile planet into a home because they learned to see possibilities where others saw only impossibilities. You too can transform your limitations into personal growth laboratories. Sixth truth. He who can see the future must have the courage to shape it. Paul saw multiple possible futures, but understood that seeing isn't enough. One must act wisely to manifest the best possible outcome. You may not have prescience, but you have intuition, experience, and the ability to learn from patterns. When you feel something isn't going right in your life, don't resign yourself to thinking, that's just how things are. You have more power to influence your future than you imagine. Small, consistent actions, taken with clear intention, can completely alter the trajectory of your life. The future isn't something that happens to you. It's something you actively participate in creating. Seventh truth. Shared water creates bonds stronger than blood. Among the Fremen, sharing water was the most sacred gesture of trust and unity. Paul learned that true relationships aren't based on convenience or need, but on conscious choices of mutual vulnerability. In your life, identify the people with whom you can share your water, those with whom you can be completely authentic, vulnerable and true. Invest genuine time and energy in these relationships. Be someone worthy of trust, capable of receiving others' vulnerability with respect and care. Superficial relationships may be numerous, but it's the deep connections that sustain you during life's most challenging moments. Eighth truth. The name you carry is less important than the legacy you build. Paul was born in Atreides, became Muad'Dib, and was known by many other names. He discovered that true identity isn't in the title you carry, but in the actions you take and the impact you make. Regardless of where you came from, your family background or social standing, you have the power to define who you are through your daily choices. Don't be confined by the limitations of external labels or others' expectations. Each day is an opportunity to write a new page of who you are choosing to become. Your legacy won't be determined by what you inherited, but by what you chose to do with what you received. Ninth truth. Specialization is for insects. Adaptability is for leaders. Paul mastered combat, politics, religion, ecology, and mysticism. He understood that in a constantly changing world, the ability to learn and adapt is more valuable than limited expertise. In your career and personal life, cultivate a mindset of a perpetual learner. Don't identify so strongly with a single skill that you become incapable of evolving. The world is changing rapidly, and those who thrive are those who can integrate diverse knowledge and apply it in creative ways. Be curious about areas outside your specialty. Innovation often happens at the intersection of different fields of knowledge. 10th truth. Silence contains more wisdom than 1,000 hurried words. Paul learned from the Fremen the value of silence in the desert, both to conserve precious moisture and to listen for vital signs of danger or opportunity. In our lives filled with constant noise, silence has become a rare and powerful resource. Practice daily moments of genuine silence. Not silence while your mind chatters internally, but deep silence where you simply exist and observe. In these moments, you will access intuitions that constant noise masked. Learn the silence in conversations too. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply truly listen to another person without rushing to formulate your response. 11th, truth. The true enemy is never outside, but within our own accepted limitations. Paul's greatest obstacles weren't the Harkonnens or the Emperor, but his own doubts, fears, and the temptation to use his power destructively. His external enemies were merely reflections of internal battles he needed to win first. Honestly, examine your life. What are the true enemies you face? Often they aren't external circumstances, but limiting beliefs, self-destructive habits, or negative thought patterns you've accepted as truth. The good news is that being internal, these enemies are completely under your control to be transformed. The most important victory you can achieve is over your own limitations. 12th, truth. Every crisis carries within it the seeds of a greater transformation. Paul saw his family destroyed, was exiled to the desert, and faced devastating betrayals. But each crisis became the catalyst for a deeper level of personal evolution. When you're going through hard times, look for the seeds of growth hidden within the situation. Losing a job can be the push needed to discover your true calling. The end of a relationship can be the space needed to reconnect with yourself. An illness can be the wake-up call needed to rethink life priorities. Don't waste your crises by experiencing them only as a victim. Experience them also as an alchemist who can transform lead into gold. 13th truth. Prophecy is fulfilled, not because it was written, but because someone had the courage to live it. Paul could have rejected his prophetic destiny, but he chose to embrace it and consciously shape it. You also have prophecies in your life, dreams, visions, intuitions about who you could become. The difference between those who realize their potential and those who live with regret is the courage to act on those inner visions. Stop waiting for perfect conditions or external approval. If you feel a deep calling towards something, start walking in that direction, even if it's in small steps. Clarity comes through action, not before it. 14th truth. Power corrupts, but the consciousness of power can purify. Paul was constantly vigilant about how his immense power could corrupt him. He developed practices and relationships that kept him connected to his essential humanity. Any form of power, whether financial, social, professional, or personal, brings with it responsibilities and temptations. Stay humble through service to others. Surround yourself with people who can question you with love, but without fear. Regularly remember where you came from and the values that guided your journey. True power is used to lift others, not to rise above them. 15th truth. True loyalty is earned through vulnerability, not strength. The freemen became loyal to Paul not because he dominated them, but because he showed himself genuinely vulnerable, learned their traditions and shared their risks. Authentic leadership requires you to be seen as human, not as an untouchable figure. Share your struggles, admit your mistakes, show that you too are learning and growing. People connect with your humanity, not your perfection. Controlled vulnerability, appropriately. Sharing your experiences and challenges builds bridges of empathy that no display of strength can construct. 16th truth. Time is the most democratic resource and the most wasted. Paul saw multiple timelines and understood the precious value of each present moment. We all receive exactly 24 hours a day, regardless of our background or situation. The difference lies in how we choose to invest that time. Treat each hour as a conscious investment. Regularly ask yourself, how am I choosing to use this moment? Is this activity moving me closer to or further from who I want to become? Time spent worrying about the past or anxious about the future is time stolen from the only moment you can truly act, the present. 17th. Truth. True wealth lies in the ability to create value, not just accumulate it. Paul inherited material wealth, But his true prosperity came from his ability to create solutions, inspire people and transform realities. Focus less on accumulating and more on creating. Develop skills that allow you to generate genuine value in people's lives. Real security doesn't come from how much you have saved, but from your ongoing ability to create, adapt, and contribute. People who know how to create value always find opportunities, even in the most challenging circumstances. 18th truth. Knowledge without wisdom is like a sword in the hands of a child. Paul had access to vast ancestral knowledge, but he needed to develop wisdom to use that information beneficially. We live in an era of unprecedented access to information, but wisdom remains rare. Wisdom is knowledge tempered by experience, compassion, and awareness of consequences. Before applying any knowledge, ask yourself, how will this impact not only me but everyone involved? What are the long-term consequences of this action? Wisdom is what transforms information into positive transformation. 19th. Truth. Respect for the enemy is the first step towards one's own invincibility. Paul carefully studied his adversaries, understanding their motivations, strengths, and strategies. He knew that underestimating opponents was the fastest path to defeat. In life, your enemies might be challenges, difficult people, or adverse circumstances. Instead of simply rejecting or fearing them, study them with curiosity and respect. Understand the logic behind behaviors you don't approve of. See challenges as teachers in disguise. This approach doesn't mean accepting harmful behaviors, but understanding them deeply to deal with them more effectively. 20th. Truth. Tradition should be honored, but not idolized, questioned, but not despised. Paul respected ancestral traditions, but knew when to adapt them to new contexts. He honored freeman customs while bringing new perspectives that benefited the entire people. Examine the traditions in your life, familial, cultural, professional. Which ones still serve growth and well-being? Which ones need to be adapted or replaced? Wisdom lies in discerning between traditions that connect us to timeless values and traditions that bind us to limiting patterns. Be respectful, but don't be a slave to customs that no longer serve human flourishing. 21st. Truth. Patience is an active form of courage, not a passive form of resignation. Paul learned to wait for the right moments to act, but patience was strategic and preparatory, not passive. True patience is not inaction, it's preparatory action. While you wait for the right moment, use the time to prepare, learn, strengthen yourself, and refine your strategy. Courageous patience knows when to wait and when to act. It understands natural rhythms and doesn't force premature results, but neither does it remain inactive indefinitely. Cultivate the wisdom to distinguish between moments of preparation and moments of action. 22nd. Truth. The greatest luxury is not having everything, but needing nothing beyond the essentials. In the desert, Paul discovered that happiness and inner strength don't depend on material abundance, but on clarity about what is truly necessary. Consciously simplify your life. Identify what your real needs are versus desires created by external influences. The more you can find satisfaction with less, the freer you become. This isn't an advocacy for poverty, but for the freedom that comes when you are not a slave to endless desires. True abundance is feeling complete with what you have while consciously working towards what you genuinely desire. 23rd. Truth. Intuition is the intelligence of the heart, conversing with the wisdom of the universe. Paul relied on both rational analysis and deep intuitions. He knew that some truths cannot be reached through logical thought alone. Develop a conscious relationship with your intuition. It's not superstition, but a sophisticated form of processing that integrates subtle information your conscious mind may not have noticed. Create moments of silence where you can hear that inner voice. Practice small decisions based on intuition and observe the results. Over time, you'll learn to distinguish between genuine intuition and disguised fears or desires. 24th. Truth. A true leader creates other leaders, not dependent followers. Paul empowered those around him to develop their own leadership capabilities. He knew that sustainable leadership cannot depend on a single person. Whether in your family, work, or community, focus on developing the capabilities of others instead of creating dependence. Teach people to fish instead of simply giving them fish. Celebrate when others around you grow and become independent. The greatest satisfaction of a true leader is seeing those he influenced become capable of leading others in turn. 25th. Truth. Strength without compassion is tyranny. Compassion without strength is impotence. Paul balanced power and heart, capable of both decisive action and profound empathy. Many people develop one of these qualities at the expense of the other. Consciously cultivate both. Develop your ability to be firm when necessary, setting boundaries, making tough decisions, confronting harmful behaviors. Simultaneously, keep your heart open and your capacity to genuinely understand and care for others. The combination of strength and compassion creates leadership that is both effective and inspiring. 26th. Truth. The fear of death can steal life. The acceptance of death can liberate life. Paul understood his mortality, and this liberated him to fully live each moment. Awareness of finitude shouldn't breed morbidity, but positive urgency. When you truly accept that your time here is limited, each day becomes more precious. You stop postponing joys, important conversations, meaningful experiences. Death as a counselor whispers, "Don't waste this day. Don't put off the love you can give today. Don't postpone the life you can live now." 27th. Truth. Responsibility is the price of freedom. Freedom is the reward of responsibility. With great power came great responsibility for Paul, but also great freedom to create the future he envisioned. Many people want freedom without responsibility, but they discover that this leads to chaos and limitation. Others accept responsibility, but without claiming the freedom it provides. Take full responsibility for your life, your choices, reactions, results. In return, claim the full freedom to create the life you desire. Responsibility is not a burden, but the passport to authentic freedom. 28th. Truth. True humility is not diminishing yourself, but acknowledging exactly what you are. Paul knew both his extraordinary capabilities and his human limitations. Real humility is not false modesty or self-deprecation, but accurate self-knowledge. Honestly acknowledge your strengths without arrogance and your weaknesses without self-destruction. This clarity allows you to use your talents fully, while seeking help in areas where you have limitations. Authentic humility is the foundation of genuine confidence and continuous growth. 29th. Truth. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. Paul learned that fighting against certain realities wasted energy that could be used for constructive transformation. There are aspects of life you must accept in order to work with them effectively. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation, but stopping wasting energy on denial and redirecting it to productive action. Accept your basic personality while working to develop it. Accept your current circumstances while planning constructive changes. For acceptance is the first step to real transformation. 30th truth. Hope without action is fantasy. Action without hope is despair. Paul maintained hope in possible futures while taking concrete actions to manifest them. Hope and action must go hand in hand. Cultivate an inspiring vision of what is possible, but combine that vision with practical and consistent steps. Hope provides direction and motivation. Action transforms possibility into reality. When you feel hope diminishing, focus on action. When you feel like giving up on action, reconnect with your hope. 31st. Truth. True wealth lies in the capacity to give, not in the compulsion to have. Paul discovered that his greatest satisfaction came from how he could contribute to the well-being of others, not from what he could accumulate for himself. Assess your wealth not only by what you have, but by what you can give: time, attention, skills, resources, love. Genuine generosity doesn't impoverish, but enriches both the giver and the receiver. When you give with an open heart, you participate in a greater flow of abundance that benefits everyone. 32nd. Truth. The past informs, the future motivates, but life happens in the present. Despite seeing multiple futures, Paul knew that real power always resided in the present moment. Use your past as a source of learning, not as a prison of regrets. Use the future as a source of direction, not as an escape from the present, but invest your primary energy and attention in what you can do here and now. The present is where your choices are made, where your actions happen, where your life is truly lived. 33rd. Truth. Courage is not the absence of fear, but conscious action despite it. Healthy solitude renews you for better connection with others. Unhealthy isolation separates you from the connections that nourish your humanity. 35th. Truth. Destiny is not what happens to you, but what you choose to do with what happens to you. This is perhaps the most powerful lesson from Paul Atreides. Despite all prophecies, visions, and external expectations, he maintained his capacity for choice as his most precious asset. You don't control everything that happens in your life, but you completely control your response to everything that happens. This response, your conscious choices in the face of circumstances, is what determines who you become and what kind of life you create. Each moment offers a new opportunity to choose. You can choose the response that brings you closer to who you want to be. And so we come to the end of this extraordinary journey through the sands of Paul Atreides' wisdom. But like all great journeys, this doesn't truly end here. It transforms into something even greater, your own journey of awakening and transformation. You came here seeking answers, and I hope you found not only answers, but even deeper questions that will lead you to unexplored territories of your own potential. Each of these 35 truths is like a seed planted in the fertile soil of your consciousness. Some will germinate immediately, others will remain dormant until the right moment to blossom, but all of them carry within them the power to completely transform the landscape of your life. Paul Atreides teaches us that we are not passive victims of our circumstances, but active architects of our destiny. That fear can be transformed into wisdom, that limitations can reveal hidden strengths, that every crisis carries seeds of transformation. He shows us that true leadership is service, that real power comes from self-knowledge, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but conscious action despite it. More importantly, he reminds us that we are far more powerful than we imagine, not in the sense of dominating others, but in the sense of mastering ourselves and creating lives of deep meaning and positive impact. The desert of Arrakis transformed a young duke into a visionary leader. But you don't need a desert planet for your own transformation. You have something even more powerful, your everyday life, filled with daily opportunities to apply each of these profound truths. Imagine how your life will begin to transform when you stop running from your fears and start seeing them as teachers. When you exchange the need to control others for the fascinating journey of truly knowing yourself. When you transform each limitation into a laboratory of growth, each relationship into an opportunity for genuine service, each challenge into a chance to develop courage and wisdom. This isn't fantasy. This is the practical power of consciously living the teachings that Paul discovered through his extraordinary journey. You are now at a crossroads. You can let these ideas be just interesting entertainment that you consume and forget, or you can make the courageous choice to transform them into fuel for your own evolution. Paul teaches us that the most important choices aren't the dramatic ones we make once in a lifetime, but the small, consistent ones we make every day. The choice to face a small fear today, the choice to be vulnerable with someone important to you this week, the choice to serve instead of being served the next time the opportunity arises. Your journey of transformation begins now, not when you have more time, more resources, or when circumstances are perfect. It begins with the next conscious choice you make. And here's what's truly extraordinary about this journey. You're not walking alone. By applying these truths to your life, you join an ancestral lineage of people who have chosen to grow, serve, and awaken their highest potential. You become part of a larger story that began long before you and will continue long after. The eternal story of humanity choosing to consciously evolve. The universe is waiting to see what kind of leader, what kind of human being, what kind of transformative force you will choose to become. Paul Atreides discovered that true power wasn't in his superhuman abilities, but in his human capacity to consciously choose, moment after moment, who he wanted to be. You have exactly that same capacity. You have exactly that same power. If these words touched something deep within you, if you feel a resonance with these truths, don't let that energy dissipate. Share this message with someone who is also seeking to grow and evolve. Together, you can be mutual support on this extraordinary journey. Leave a comment sharing which of these 35 truths impacted you the most and how you intend to apply it to your life. Your perspective might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you're ready for more content that combines profound wisdom with practical application, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Together, we will continue exploring the depths of human wisdom through the lens of the most inspiring characters ever created, transforming entertainment into fuel for personal evolution. Remember, the desert of your life, with all its challenges, fears, and uncertainties, is not your enemy. It is your most rigorous teacher and your most effective forge. Paul Atreides emerged from that desert not despite its hardships, but because of them. And you too will emerge transformed, stronger, wiser, and more genuinely powerful than you ever imagined possible. Your epic journey began the moment you chose to watch this video. Now it's time to live that journey. The universe is watching, and we will be here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, may you walk without rhythm, leaving deep footprints in the sands of time.